fellow bookworms to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and we just finished reading James Patterson and Gabrielle Charbonnet's Witch and Wizard. So before I get into my thoughts on this book, just want to make sure everybody is all caught up on what's happening on this channel. Of course, we do our Book of the Month read on Monday, and currently we are reading V.C. Andrews' My Sweet Audrina. So if you're not already participating in that, I do hope you will join us. And we are continuing on with the Dresden Files series. Of course, we read the first book in the series for our Book of the Month last month, and we are continuing on in the series with Full Moon, which is the second book. So again, I hope you will participate in that. These videos come out on Saturdays. And then for our weekly reads, this week we are going to be reading Goddess of the Night, which is the first in the Daughters of the Moon series by Lynn Ewing. And so if you don't have a copy of this yet, I hope you'll get one and join me as I read it. Or if you're not sure, wait and check out my video next Wednesday as I give my thoughts on this, and it might be one that you would like to pick up. But really excited to jump into that. This is a part of a series, and there's quite a few books in that series as well. We are only going to be reading this first one. Somebody gifted me this book, and so I definitely want to read it because it was on my shelf. And then, of course, on Monday, I introduced the next book of the month, which will start on September 15th. And I kind of went over the synopsis in Monday's video, but we are going to be reading Anna's story, which is by Jenna Bush. This is our first nonfiction read on this channel, so I'm really excited to read that, and I hope you will join me for that as well. But that gets us all caught up on what we're doing on this channel, so let's go ahead and jump right into Witch and Wizard. And so I will say that I did enjoy the story, but I had some issues with the writing of this book. So before we get too much into it, let me just give you the premise of the book. Basically, Wisty and Wit are a witch and a wizard who are siblings. They don't know they're a witch and wizard, and there's a new kind of power that's taking over. He's basically persecuting witches and wizards, and specifically children. He kind of wants to create like this cookie cutter society where everybody falls in line and there's no like individualization or anything like that. And so they're not only learning about their powers, but they're, having to cope after being basically kidnapped from their home in the middle of the night, taken from their parents and put into, this prison. So that's kind of the whole premise of the story. And I think the story itself has a lot of good talking points. It says it's aimed for ages 12 and up. I would honestly put this book at anywhere between like 10 to 14 years of age, that age group. The story itself is enjoyable, so you can enjoy it at any age, but I think with as simplified as the writing is, that's the age group I would put it at, honestly. I was kind of surprised, I thought the writing was going to be a little bit more in depth, but like I said, it was overly simplified, especially in the beginning of the book. And the other thing I didn't like about it was the chapters were super choppy. Like, especially in the beginning, they were like 1 to 2 pages max, and it kept, I didn't mind this part so much because it would jump between Wisty's viewpoint and Wit's viewpoint. And I liked that they started a new chapter when that happened, and they would put, whose viewpoint it was at the top of the chapter, which was really helpful for me because sometimes I get confused and I have to think about it. And so just knowing right off the bat, okay, this is Wit's viewpoint, so I know, whose viewpoint it is, was helpful. But there was times where it would jump into a new chapter and it was the same viewpoint. So like, say it was Wit's viewpoint, it would still be his viewpoint. It would still be the same kind of scene, but they would jump into a new chapter, which didn't need to happen because it was the same scene and it was the same viewpoint. So that was really bugging me, especially in the beginning of the book. But as we got further into it, it was less choppy like that. And I think the story was built up enough. It kind of just flowed a little bit better. But in the beginning of the book, like I said, every page and a half to 2 pages, it was a new chapter and it didn't need to be. So it was just really broken up and it was really driving me insane. So once I got past that and kind of the oversimplified writing, I was really able to get into the story, and it got built up enough. I was relating to these characters and enjoying the characters and the storyline. And I think it definitely is a good book to read with your children. Like if you have children, preteen to, just barely into their teens, I think it's a great book to read to them because it has a lot of great talking points that are relevant to real life. Especially, like history as far as like the Nazis and Hitler and such and persecution. Like that's a great talking point. And then also, it's relevant in today's society as well. So I'm not going to get too much into that. That's not what this channel's about. And if you do want to discuss it a little bit in the comments, keep it civil. But it is relevant in today's society, and I think it's important to talk about as well, because people are persecuted and children are taken away from their parents and things like that, and it's horrible. So definitely something, like I said, a good way to kind of introduce your preteen or your young teen into politics and important world issues and things like that happen. So I will give the book credit for that. And then another thing I enjoyed about the book was the character Wisty definitely gave me like Anne of Green Gables vibes, which I really enjoyed. I thought that was fun. I really liked Anne of Green Gables. I never read the books or anything, but I did watch the new Netflix show. I haven't watched the old Anne of Green Gables. My grandma loves it. She talks about it all the time, but I've never actually watched it. But I did watch the new one that was on Netflix, and I really enjoyed it. So I did enjoy that aspect, and I think also there was a couple points where it shows that just because you trust somebody doesn't necessarily mean, or just because somebody presents themselves as an ally doesn't mean they are, and doesn't mean they're trustworthy. And then people that maybe you didn't like and weren't trustworthy can kind of change, and you can kind of give them a second chance. And there's also a dog that kind of gets a second chance as well, which I really enjoyed that part, as well. So, and yeah, just overall a good story. It's just the writing style left something to be desired, which I don't know how much of it was him, because I read like I've read James Patterson before. I've read some of his adult stuff, and I really enjoyed those. So I don't know if it was him, or because he's used to writing adult books, he maybe oversimplified it, or if it was maybe Gabrielle Charbonnet. Like I've never heard of her or read anything by her, and so I'm not familiar with her at all. And so I don't know if it was more her writing style. I don't really know how it works when two writers get together. But like I said, the writing style itself I didn't enjoy, but the story I did. And like I said, if you do have a young teen or a preteen, I think this would be a good book to maybe read with them and discuss with them. Um, and that way you can have some important conversations for sure. And I think it's worth. I think it's worth the money if you do have like a young teen in your household. But for me myself, I enjoyed reading it, and I'm glad I did. But I wouldn't necessarily spend money to get the rest of the book in the series. If I come across them like in the library or something, I might go ahead and pick them up and finish the series, but it's not something I'm going to go out of my way to try to search out and finish the series as much as I enjoyed this book itself. So that's kind of where I stand on the book. I know it's kind of a little bit wishy-washy and all over the place, but that's kind of how I felt about this book. Like there's certain things I didn't like, but the story itself I thought was fun, just not enough that I'm, anxious to get my hands on the rest of the series or anything like that. So Anyway, let me know if you read it, your thoughts down below, and if you haven't, if it's something that you might go ahead and pick up or not. Like I said, I do think it's worth it, especially if you do have a young teen in your household. If not, maybe if you come across it at a library or you have a friend that has it, I would say borrow it from them because I do think it's worth the read. I just don't think it's necessarily worth the money. So, but that's it for now. I hope you guys will join me this week as I read Goddess of the Night, and definitely join me back next Wednesday as I talk about this book. And don't forget to check in with me on Mondays and Saturdays as well. That's all for now. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.